Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Trig Positive Goes TV on this beautiful Friday. It is Friday, man. It is hot here in the LA area. It is 82 degrees, which for us it's hot. I know there are places where it's 95, other places where it's like 50 or 30. I don't know. But here for us who like perfect weather, it's 82 degrees, but it will be like 92 tomorrow. So whoa, right? Anyway, welcome back to the Trig Positive Goes TV on this beautiful Friday. Today, as I said, is Friday 9th. Happy Cinco de Mayo week. May the 4th be with you. Happy Mother's Day on Sunday to my beautiful wife, to my beautiful mother, my abuelita in heaven, all the mothers out there, your mom, your sister, your nephew, not your nephew, your niece, your sister-in-law, your wife, etc., your mommy, whether she's in heaven or here, wherever she may be. Thank you, moms, for all you do. Beautiful, beautiful day to celebrate. We're going to have a nice dinner here at the house with my mommy and my wife. Gonna just enjoy this day on Sunday together as a family because the restaurants, are just crazy packed. No one will probably be at church on Sunday because everybody wants to get up late and then go out to lunch or brunch, as they call it here. But I want to talk about 5 ways to heal trauma, 5 tips that I have found to heal trauma. So, a little bit of my story as a young boy, I went through a lot of trauma stemming from separation from my parents, immigration fears, war, language barriers, you name it, since age 8, 9, 10, all the way to adulthood, through my teenage years and adolescent years and even early young adult years. I would say I didn't heal a lot of that maybe until the last few years. 20 years of therapy, thousands of dollars, maybe, I don't know, $100,000 plus spent, and it's been a good investment on therapy. Many amazing therapists, including my very first one, who was a student. She said to me, "I think you're a prime candidate for lifelong, long-term therapy." Man, shout out to that girl, because she was right. And I am someone who is an example. I want to be an example to people, especially at midlife or young people. It seems like now it's just not midlife, meaning people in their 40s and 50s who deal with trauma, but younger people in their maybe teens, 20s, perhaps 30s. But definitely seems like there are these 2 seasons where everything just kind of bubbles up. Not for everyone, not everyone, but many people, could be 40, 50% of people that are facing trauma, untreated, unresolved trauma. And they may be coping through 1,000 different ways, from anger to gangs to violence to even God and church to medication to maybe it could be on the new Witch Evolution and Clash Royale. So we're talking about trauma here on Twitch, by the way. So thank you for the comment. I do not know anything about Clash Royale. But we're talking about trauma and how to resolve whether it's 20-something or midlife trauma and that kind of stuff. And so, as I was saying, a lot of it goes untreated, or it's managed, self-managed through video games, violence, money, the pursuit of money. It could be 1,000 things that young people or people my age are coping. And what I'm here to do is to be an advocate for healing, for therapy, for conversation, for counseling, for spirituality, for finding better ways to understand and cope with trauma. And so 7 deadly sins, yes, Proverbs 6 talks about 7 deadly sins of Proverbs, of what kind of ruins a man, including lying and deception and pride and ego and anger, lust, envy, vanity. There are deadly sins that destroy a man, a human. And the answer is found in Jesus to forgive and to redeem that which is lost, including trauma that comes from a lot of these unconscious motivations, a lot of these things that get into us early in life, whether it's something that you went through at home or at work or church or just in general at school. Maybe someone who was supposed to be a trusted person who ended up hurting you. all of these things are the things that God and I, my point is that I'm an advocate for through faith and spirituality and therapy in many different ways that we can talk about and discuss. I was talking to a friend recently. She's also at midlife, and she was telling me about anger and issues that she has at home and at work, and then issues related to anger that deal more with loneliness and uselessness, feeling useless. And I was telling her that all of those symptoms are very typical of midlife and an unresolved trauma. And so we were talking about things with her family and her dad and mom, etc. And a lot of it comes from that, in that different kind of stuff. And all the things that young people and people, as I said, my age, younger, deal with that are related to these issues. And I've been an advocate, I would say, for maybe 20 years plus, of resolving these very sensitive topics, and yet they affect people in a day-to-day basis. I have many friends who have turned to alcohol and drugs, other friends who have turned to materialism, even, as I said, faith in God and churchianity, or these days politics and all the red pill stuff, including distractions online, whether it's OnlyFans or pornography. There are a million and one ways in which the devil is destroying the lives of young and old, ending your life, all kinds of things that the devil, the flesh, this world is using to destroy the lives of young and old, black and white, rich and poor. And obviously, the fentanyl epidemic that's happening these last, whatever, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years. And you could throw in there all kinds of addictions, from alcohol to weed to, it could be sexual misguidance or promiscuity. A million and one ways, speaking of the seven deadly sins. And no problem about the trolling, I understand. And so God is doing something in my life where, as I've healed more and more from the things that I've been through, I've become even more of an advocate about these topics because they're so relevant and so important to Spanish speakers. I'm a Spanish speaker, as well as, of course, our English speakers. And as I said, no matter who you are, where you come from, these are things that cut through society and economics. And so I think the best advice that I have received in all my years of counseling and working with therapists and God and all the rest is really to be aware of your own devices, of your own, you could say, of your own evil, of your own seven deadly sins, of your own sin, but specifically your character sin. It's not just the outward appearance or the manifestations of that trauma, but what's inside of your actions and behaviors is really what is necessary. And a lot of times that's what's hidden from us, because the devil's great at lying to us and deceiving us and kind of pulling a veil over our eyes. But a lot of times we are used to being who we are, even though we don't like who we are. We get used to it, or we blame other people. We say, well, this person, that parent, this job. Or we feel victimized, like, well, my dad was an alcoholic, or he was in jail, or my mom beat me, or, you have these cultural or societal stereotypes and realities that we face that keep us in this victim mentality. Your friends who you talk to online, a lot of times young people become so isolated from reality that they only listen to content that makes them feel even worse or to escape reality. And so all of these are the topics. I'm not a therapist, by the way. I'm a pastor and I'm a coach, musician, as you know. But I've learned a lot about trauma and trauma response and how your body eventually acts out, whatever behavior you're hiding. And so, as I said, it's so important to be self-aware, to realize what you're dealing with. And what I use as a tool is the Enneagram. The Enneagram is a personality typing tool mechanism. It's spiritual, but not necessarily Christian, or you could even say religious, but it definitely has more of an understanding of who we are and why we do what we do. So, for example, you might be someone who You don't like negative news or negative situations or negative people. And so, even though that might be your wife, your friends, your kids, your job, your boss, you don't just avoid those people, but you basically escape. You run away from your problems through experiences, constantly looking for a new shiny object kind of thing syndrome for the latest, newest, better thing. And what you end up doing is, even though you are enjoying life, you end up masking so much of your pain, and you end up distracting yourself so much from that pain that you eventually need deeper and deeper and more dangerous experiences to keep that edge. And so a lot of people that are this is basically the seventh type of the Enneagram, what they call the adventure seeker. People like this, as I said, they keep kind of raising the stakes. They're saying, well, I'm kind of getting bored and I'm beginning to think about all that negative stuff back here, that painful stuff that's happened to me or that's in my heart and my mind. And so I better look for something new and exciting. And so you keep running. Other people, they are very helpful and loving. They're always there for others, but really they're masking the same stuff, but through love. They become codependent, serving everyone else except their own needs. And really, their love is, you wouldn't call it fake, but in some ways, their love is self serving or self seeking. They're hoping to love bomb you to the point that you now feel responsible or you feel indebted, like you have to now love them back. You feel guilty. It's like you're guilt tripping people into taking care of you because your cup is so empty. You feel so filled with shame and uselessness and loneliness that you're worthless, that unless you love and take care of everybody else, even at your own expense, that you're not worthless. And so you're stuck in this place of wanting to love people, but you realize that you're doing it for the wrong reasons. It's not, as my dog, Roxy, it's not, it's genuine, but it's not selfless. It's, as I said, it's self-seeking, self-serving, because you expect, you may not admit this, you may not say this, you might even be aware of this, but you're seeking love for you. You're doing it for your own sake. Other people become very angry, and their unwillingness, their fear of being controlled or of having other people get the upper hand over them, they become very controlling themselves. They become very possessive. They want to tell everybody else how they're feeling, or that you have their back, or that you know what they need and what they need, and you speak for them. You don't let them really tell you how they feel. Instead, you're always telling them how they feel, which is really weird. You're not even telling them how you feel. You're telling them how they feel. And so you become very controlling, very possessive, very bully. You become a bully, and whether it's through big gestures or a big personality or a loud voice, or maybe you are a big person. And so through all of these bodily techniques, you could say, you control your environment. And then when that goes south is when anger comes out, almost violence, because when that vulnerability begins to pop up, or you begin to touch your own innocence, your own woundedness, your own childhood wound, then you run from it and you don't want to touch that. And so you would rather almost go back to being that bully, because that gives you a sense of control and purpose, and almost like life. It's life-giving. It's like your energy rises. You feel connected to people. You almost feel like you're helping others through your anger and your frustration, your control, except that people are telling you that this is not very helpful, you're hurting me, but you don't know what to do. And so you turn to alcohol, drugs, violence, lust, you name it. Other people will maybe be more logical and systematic about it. They won't lash out, they won't get super emotional. Instead, they become very rigid with their plan and the way that they want life to be. It's A plus B equals C for them. Always 1 plus 1 equals -1. No matter how much they do, they're constantly fearing other people, fearing being left out, fearing not being accepted, not being safe, not having adventures, as I mentioned, not having enough time to do all the things that you need to do, protecting their time constantly. Everything becomes this rigid plan that people have to fit into. And you that works for a while. You might even do a lot of great things. You may become very good at certain tasks. You may become an expert, but you're really lacking in relationships. No one likes to be around you, basically, because of how rigid and how perfectionistic you can get. You're like that donkey that's like constantly hee haw, hee haw. They're striking you, they're hitting you, and you're not moving an inch. And you have a sense of pride and ego, and you almost like that because it gives you power. You think, I'm just too smart for you. I know more than you. If you only knew what I knew, then you would be like me. You would listen to me, my plan, my formula, my schedule. And so you protect your schedule, you protect your time, or you take advantage, not advantage, but you overdo your schedule. You put in too many things in your day and you're exhausted. But even that gives you a sense of pride and ego. Like, yeah, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, but I know what I'm doing. I have complete control over my life, even though your life, like they talk about in 12-step programs, your life has become out of control. And people are telling you. And so you have to have like interventions. And you're the type of person that people need to come and say, hey, you're hurting yourself and everyone else. Nobody likes you. We all are concerned. And so that's often how these logic types wake up. So you have all of these different things that trauma does. And as I said, at midlife, we have to become even more aware because when you're young, you have this strength, but you don't have anything yet in place. You don't have a job or a career or a relationship or a marriage or a house or a family, or you may have bits and pieces of that, but you don't have a complete picture of who you want to be or your parents were or who you hope to become. And so that really puts you in a bad place. And so you turn to all these other things. When you're at my age, at midlife, you're not only running out of time to some degree, but all that stuff that the young person is pursuing, it's behind you. You're no longer looking for those things or have energy. You're not energized by those things because you've been there, done that. So now you become disillusioned with life. You can become very depressed, anxious, useless, feelings of shame, deep feelings of shame, of failure, of anger, of nobody cares, nobody listens to me. And it's true because nobody does care. But guess what? Nobody used to care even before. It's just now you become more aware of these realities. And so now you turn to, I don't know, a lot of things, the same stuff, but maybe in a louder or maybe quieter way. Men might, quote, leave their families and destroy their lives completely. Women might become angry and very controlling, very depressed. They can turn to drinking, or they get into fitness and want to relive their youths and want to have that hot girl summer again in their 50s to try to stay relevant and feel young and feel loved by a man or by work or by life, etc., society. And so plastic surgeries or spending money or maybe overworking, wanting to climb the corporate ladder. They might become activists. They might turn, as I said, to sexual deviancy. And so you can see both men and women face all kinds of craziness at midlife and give into those things unless they do the work. The work that has been there, as I said, waiting for you for many years. And that is, I don't know who that is. And it's what do you call those? Crank call, not crank call, but whatever they call this, a telemarketer call. So you have these people that avoid their issues unless they keep score of what your body's telling them. Your body always keeps a score. It talks to you. It shows up in different ways: illness, disease, joblessness, a divorce, a relationship that goes south. All kinds of things that you face because of that trauma. It's a trauma response because our bodies are very not superficial, very finite and very limited. And they are weak, you could say, even though we may feel very strong, but it's our bodies are fragile. And like that song that Sting wrote, How Fragile We Are, so true. And so when you come to these places of deep trauma, facing your demons, you could call it, whether it's in your 20s or at midlife, you can feel pretty hopeless because not a lot of people talk about these things. I do. I talk about it all the time. And as I said, not a lot of people care, not a lot of people listen because it's not angry, or these days it's not clickbaity or entertaining. It's more soul care, it's more real. And that's my, you could say, my niche or my niche or my space. That's my area of content, is to be honest about my own journey, to challenge you to do the same, to not simply give in or to simply basically ignore what's happening in your body, in your mind, in your life. And so, as I said, the first and primary thing is to be very self-aware. I don't know who took off some of these stickers. I'm looking at my Rubik's Cube here, and somebody ripped off these two colors, right? Yeah. Oh man, that's too bad. I don't know who. We don't have any small kids. Speaking of kids. And so this should be my father-in-law's Rubik's Cube, so I'm pretty upset about that right now. And so not only is self-awareness important, but then you have to have a program, a path to recovery, including a ton of things. Coaching, you could do Enneagram work, you could do counseling, therapy, what do they call that? Talk therapy, or DCB, I forget what they call it. Medication, exercise, fitness, wellness, soul care, spirituality, diet, exercise, and eating plan. All of these things, as you can tell, there are 1,000,001 podcasts or online coaches and gurus that will sell you something to heal you in 5 minutes or less. And so that is all a bunch of lies, because this is a lifetime of recovery. It is like an alcoholic. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm not a drug addict or sex addict, but it is very much a recovery program that you have to get on. You have to get on this path to recovery. And I've done the 12 steps here. I've done both the kind of secular, the spiritual ones, and just the traditional ones from AA. All of them are very helpful. Russell Brand, who now is in a lot of trouble, obviously, he wrote a great book called, I think it was called Recovery. I have it. I love that book, where he takes the 12 steps of AA and he transforms them into more trauma-based recovery, which was very helpful for me, and it really helped me in a lot of ways. Also, biblical deliverance. I have a couple books that I read and experiences that I had with mentors and pastors and spiritual leaders, just with Jesus myself, where I also experienced healing just through the Word of God, biblical healing, biblical deliverance, that had elements of talk therapy and conversation and mentorship, but it was very Bible-based, which I also recommend. You don't want to be out there just floating through life, getting random input. You want to get input from the Word of God through trained professional men and women of God who can walk you through it. Again, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor, I'm not a doctor. I am a pastor and coach and musician. But my contribution is to be honest and to at least get you to be open about your own path. I'm not here to say, look at me, either good or bad or ugly, but I'm here to say, do something about it. Because at midlife, maybe I didn't finish my thought earlier, we're no longer, I guess I did, we're not longer raising kids or climbing the corporate ladder or wanting to be perfect or fit or beautiful or young. All that's behind us. Now we have to do the work in here and stop ignoring the outcomes, the consequences that you're facing in marriage and work, in your personal life, in your health. You have to ignore that. I mean, you can't ignore that. You can no longer ignore that. You have to begin to take a look inwardly, and begin to say, wait a minute, am I missing something? Have I become too arrogant, too prideful, too lustful, too vain, too angry, too selfish, too logical, too rigid, too, what do they call that when someone is has too much fun, too narcissistic, too perfectionistic, to all these things, right? The 7 deadly sins, speaking of. And so you have to get honest with yourself and listen to people's input, no matter how hard it is, especially at midlife, where you, as I said, you don't have a lot of choices except to be humble and to grow. Now, in your 20s, you have more choices, but guess what? You're going to keep making the same mistakes over and over again unless you learn the lesson. And guess what? Guess what? God in His mercy will bring you the lesson to you 3, 4, 5, 6 times over and over again until you learn it. And the quicker that you learn the lesson, the better off you are. It's better that you say in your 20s, I think I'm noticing a trend here of what my bosses and people and friends are telling me, what I know about myself. And even though I'm still in denial or fighting it or fearing it, I better wake up and begin to deal with these things head on, to grow and to do something about my life. Most of all, my character, who I am on the inside before God and before man, not fearing man, fearing God alone, but doing it for the sake of your family, yourself, your own health, path forward, etc. And at midlife, for the sake of your own wellness, so that you can be a contributing member of society. You can have, if you have raising grandkids, or be a good mentor to younger people, to be a good employee, because we still have a long way to go, and to live a peaceful, happy life like we all want to live, even though you're older. The worst thing you can do is to go through life blindly, to just think that everyone else is out to get you, that you're perfect, that you're the best, that you have no faults, or that you are horrible, terrible, disgusting, nobody cares, nobody loves you, your life is filled with pain and anguish and suffering, and woe is me, and where is God, and I hate people. Neither is very healthy or helpful. What is the best thing is to be honest, to seek help, to be in community with other people that are dealing with the same stuff, and to not be afraid. I would say the last thing is to have courage. This stuff takes a ton of courage. For me to be here week after week, day after day, year after year, talking about my process takes a ton of courage. And forget even this. Just simply doing the work in here for the sake of me and my purpose and family, etc., it takes a ton of guts and money and time and focus and energy and criticism and all kinds of stuff. But the results are priceless. It's peace within, it's effectiveness out here. It's to be, as I said, a profitable and a good member of society, to be kind, filled with love, filled with grace, be someone that people want to be like. If nobody wants to be like you, which happens to me all the time, moments and even longer seasons, you have to begin to ask yourself, what's wrong with me? Why does nobody want to be like me? Why don't my kids want to be around me? Why doesn't my wife enjoy me? Why don't my friends never call me back? What is wrong with me? I don't mean wrong as in, since you were born, you're useless and you're worthless. No, I'm not talking about that. Nor am I saying, oh, it's their fault, I'm perfect. I'm talking about being, as I said, aware. And that takes a ton of courage, takes a ton of strength to do the work, to face your demons, to face God, and to say, Lord, change me, fix me, help me. I don't want to be this way anymore. I don't want to keep making the same mistakes. I don't want the same thing that happened to me last year and 3 years ago and 5 years ago to happen to me again, over and over again. Lord, I want to change. I want to be different. Can people change? Absolutely. Can you grow? Yes. Will it be overnight? No. Will it be 100%? No. Will God heal you overnight? He could, and he may not. It might be a process. It might be overnight. I have no idea. That's God's will, His mercy. Only He knows what He wants to do in your life. No one can tell you what God's going to do in you, through you, except the Lord Jesus Christ, the Holy Spirit, the Father in heaven, the triune Godhead, 3 in 1. And so, but what you can do is be real, do the work, be strong and courageous. And as I said, if you want my coaching, if you want a community, email me, call me, text me, Instagram me, whatever it may be. Trig@davidtrigg.com, or go to my website, davidtrigg.com, or go to my Instagram @davidtrigg, and follow me, DM me, send me a message, and let's get together so that we can be in support to each other. We can be a community called Gozo, as I like to call it. Gozo just simply means joy. The joy of the Lord is my strength. Psalm 30 verse 6, though there's pain in the night, Gozo comes in the morning. Gozo right there. And so you can't see my cups back there, but my Gozo cups, all this branding that I've had for, 20 years, is all part of my message, the message of Gozo in light of trauma and pain and personality and all the rest. So let me know how I can help. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time. Adios.